Hello, this is Mrs. Rook with Molly, and we're here to read you another story today about the zoo. I thought this would be a good book because right now we're supposed to stay home and we're indoors. We might be outside in our yards playing, but we can still imagine going to places and doing things. And I thought that many of you have probably at one time or another been to a zoo, and you know what a zoo is, and that you know that there's all kinds of different animals at the zoo that you can see. And there might be animals at the zoo from all over the world, different parts of the world. And some of you might even have your very favorite animals that you like to go see at the zoo. The animals that we see at the zoo are not like pets. So they're wild animals and animals that you would find in nature. So anyway, this is just a fun story that many of my students used to like, and it's called Dear Zoo. The author is Rod Campbell, and it's just kind of a fun story, but I think you'll enjoy the pictures and the way that the story is written, because it has little pop-up tabs that you can see the pictures underneath. And then I had an idea that you could even make your own kind of a picture book. So when we're finished, I have a couple of activities that you could do at home too. So this is Dear Zoo, and it looks like it has a picture of maybe a lion in that cage, and it says from the zoo. So I'm wondering what kinds of things are going to come from the zoo. I'm going to read this book and lift the flaps, and you can see what's coming from the zoo in this fun book called Dear Zoo. I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me an, I don't know, what do you think it is? They sent me an elephant. What do you think about that? If you wrote to the zoo and they sent you an elephant, he was too big. I sent him back. And on the box it says, very heavy. An elephant would be very heavy, wouldn't it? So they sent me a, look up there, giraffe. He was too tall. I sent him back. He's so tall, he's sticking out of the box, out of the crate, isn't he? Because giraffes have long necks. So they sent me a, that looks like the cover picture, doesn't it? That matches the cover. They sent me a, has a tail, lion. He was too fierce. I sent him back. See that? That's fun to lift that tab and see the lion. So they sent me a, this one has a window I can see in there. That looks familiar. Oh, it has a hump on its back. They sent me a camel. He was too grumpy. I sent him back. So they sent me a, it's in a basket, snake. He was too scary. I sent him back. So they sent me a monkey. They sent me a monkey. He was too naughty. I sent him back. So they sent me a, what is that? Frog. He was too jumpy. He was too jumpy. I sent him back. So they thought very hard and they sent me a puppy. He was perfect. I kept him. What kind of pet would you like from the zoo? Do you like elephants, lions, a snake? What's your favorite animal? My favorite animal is the monkeys. I always thought they were fun to watch and funny. This is a flip or a flap book that has little flaps that you can lift, and so that makes it kind of fun to read. I've had this book for a long time. It's very old. And so I thought that I would invite you to come into my kitchen, my dining room, and I'm gonna make a flap book, and I thought I would show you how to make one too. So here we are at my kitchen table, and I have some supplies, and at the end of this video, I'll post a picture of what you need to make this easy flap book at home. So you could have your own story and draw some pictures. So first of all, you might need scissors, and if you need help with scissors, have your mom or dad there to help you with scissors. You might need some tape to put your pictures together with, and you might need a pen or a pencil, marker or crayon to write with. And then just some different paper. You could use notebook paper, whatever kind of paper you have at home. I think I have maybe 4 pieces of paper, and then another page to make what's gonna make the flaps that we're going to use. So I'm gonna take this paper, fold it in half, make a crease there the hamburger way, as they call it, because it's the fat way, and then the skinny way, the hot dog way. And then I like to cut along those creases, because then I don't have to worry if I cut real straight or not. The paper helps me to cut straighter. So I just cut those creases off, and then I have lots of little rectangle pieces that I can use. These are gonna be my flaps, and then these pages that I have are gonna be my actual book. So I've already written on some of these, and it says, Dear Zoo, I wrote this, Dear Zoo, and you could write this yourself, or you could have somebody help you write it. Dear Zoo, I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me an, I don't know what they sent me. I'm gonna use my paper that I just cut. I'm going to tape that down. And if you don't have tape, you could use glue or whatever you have at your house to stick that down. I'm just gonna tape this rectangle piece down. To make a flap. So there I have my page. Dear Zoo, I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me an... And I can fold that flap over like that. I can open it and close it like that. And now what you could do at home is behind the flap, you can draw a picture of your animal, whatever you want to draw that the zoo sent you. So there's one of my pages. Then I have another page. I actually have 4 pages here that I could make. And so I'm just going to put my next rectangular piece down and tape that one down. I'm making my own book. And then when I'm finished putting it all together, I can illustrate or draw the pictures for my book. So you could do that too. You could make your own flap book. So I'm going to tape these in, and I almost have it finished. Then I can go back and illustrate, draw my pictures. I like to draw with a pencil first and then color with maybe crayons or something that I have at home, because with a pencil I can erase it if I don't like it, or if I make a mistake, or if I want to change something, and then I can color with the crayons and make it more colorful. So this last page I didn't write on it yet, so I'm going to write, I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me a... Okay, that's how that page is finished. And this is my last page. So my book will have 4 pages, but you can have however many pages you want. And so this is my last rectangle that I'm going to put in my book to make it a flap book. These are the little flaps that you can open and close. Okay. Then I can put all of these together, or you can keep them separate if you want to. Just keep them laid out. I have a stapler at home. If you have a stapler, you could staple them together. If you want to tape them together, you could tape them together. Or you could just keep your pages separated. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever you want to do. You could even put them up on your refrigerator at home. So this is my book now. And it says, Dear Zoo, I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me and there's my flap. And so hiding behind the flap is where now I can draw a picture. Like if I wanted to draw an elephant back there, I could draw a picture of an elephant. And then on each page, I'm going to draw a different picture. I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me a... And there I have my flap, and I can draw a picture behind there. Maybe they sent me a lion. And so on this page, maybe I want to draw a lion. So I can go back now and add my pictures, and then I'll have my own book of Dear Zoo that I made. I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me a... And then here again, I have a flap, and so I can draw my pictures. So after you have your book all put together, then you can go back and draw your pictures behind the flap, and then you'll have your own flap book. There we go. So that's just an easy project that you could do at home. You could do it today or tomorrow if you don't have time today. And then you'll have your own copy of your own Dear Zoo book. So now I'm going to take you into my kitchen, and I thought of one more activity that we could do. And this is cooking. It involves a little bit of cooking, not really anything too major, difficult. However, if you're in the kitchen and you're around the stove or you need to use the stove, you should always have an adult with you so that you're safe and you don't get hurt or burned or anything like that. So if you're going to do this next activity, you need to have an adult help you in the kitchen. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to flip this around so you can see what I have here. We're going to make some homemade Play-Doh. And then again, after this video, I will post the recipe. There's a couple of different recipes, and you could even look online to find some recipes if you don't have the things that I have here to make the Play-Doh with. So first of all, I have some flour. This is just all-purpose flour. I have some salt, some vegetable oil. I have an ingredient called alum, and then I have some food coloring. I'm going to use green today because I know one of my little friends who's been watching, his favorite color is green. So I'm going to use green today. And then I have some measuring tools to use. I have a 1 cup measure, I have a 1/2 cup measure, and I have a tablespoon. These are to help me to get the ingredients measured out correctly. Then I have my recipe. It's actually in a cookbook. And again, I'll load that, I'll post that after I send this video out. I'll post this recipe. And then here are my ingredients. I wrote them big so you could follow along. This is what you need, but you could cut this recipe in half if you didn't want to use as much ingredients. So this one I'm going to make calls for 2½ cups flour, 1/2 cup salt, 1 tablespoon alum, that's this measure, 1 tablespoon, 3 tablespoons cooking oil, 2 cups boiling water, and then food coloring. So I have a pan on the stove. We do need to measure 2 cups of water, and then we need to boil that. So again, this is where you would want to get help from an adult. I'm going to measure the 2 cups. So that looks like about 1. And I put that into my pan. And then another cup. And that looks about like 2 cups. Then I'm going to put that back on the stove and turn that on so that water will be boiling. It'll be very hot. So again, you would want to have some adult supervision and help. So while that's heating and boiling, getting to the boiling point, we're going to measure the other ingredients, and we'll follow along what the recipe says. So my recipe says to mix the dry ingredients together and then add the oil, and then after that, the boiling water. So hopefully that water will be boiling. And so while we're waiting for that, we can mix the dry ingredients. So we need to look at our recipe. It said we needed 2½ cups flour, and that would be a dry ingredient because flour is not a liquid. So I'm going to use my same measuring cup that I used for the water, but I have to dry it out now because the water was a liquid. And so now I have to get that dry so that I can measure out the flour. I think I said the water was dry. The water was a liquid. I may have said that wrong, so I need to clarify. The water was liquid, so now I need this measuring cup to be dry so that I can measure the flour. And so we need 2. I'm just doing this with one hand. So because I'm videotaping. I really need an assistant helper. I'm gonna get a knife. This is just a butter knife, and probably making you dizzy walking around. I should set this camera down. I don't know where to set it. Let's see. Nope, that's not gonna work. Technical difficulties, right? Okay, here. I'm just gonna do it with one hand. So, as you can see in there, I have the flour, and I like to just scrape it off so that it's level. That gives me 1 cup. I'm gonna dump that in my bowl, and then I'm just gonna measure one more. That would be 2 cups. So this is kind of a fun activity that you could do at home with just some simple ingredients. Level it off again as best you can. It doesn't probably have to be perfect. There's 2 cups. And then it did say 2.5, so I'm going to use this half measuring cup to get the remainder of the flour. Two and a half cups of flour. Then what else did it say? It said add the oil. Oh, the rest of the dry ingredients. So 2.5 cups flour, a half cup of salt. So next I'll get my salt. Put that in the half cup measure. Again, you will have to ask your parents or adult for help in doing this, and to make sure that it's okay that you get these ingredients and that you're doing this anytime you're working with things in the kitchen. Half a cup of salt, 1 tablespoon of alum. So this is a spice that you can cook with. It's called alum. Just FYI, hope this one hasn't been opened. Let's see if I can screw the cap off. Set you down here for a minute. Okay, we have to open this one up. It's never been opened before. So here we go. My water's boiling over there. That's a good thing. Okay, now I'm going to measure my 2 cups of alum. What I was going to say earlier for the FYI was this alum is a spice used for baking different things. And it doesn't taste very good, so I would not try to taste it. It's not a very good taste. So we just need 1 tablespoon of alum. If you don't have alum, there's another recipe that uses cream of tartar. Maybe you have that at home instead. Or you could even find a different recipe that doesn't maybe use any of those ingredients. Just find one. You can Google it online and see how to make homemade Play-Doh. It's really a fun activity. So there we have our dry ingredients. Then we're going to add the oil. It said 3 tablespoons of cooking oil, so we're going to measure 3 tablespoons. There's 1, 2, 3, and then add the boiling water. So my water is boiling now. I'm going to flip you back around. It's very hot. It's on the stove. I'm actually going to turn that stove off, and that water is boiling and it's very hot. So you need to be very careful. Like I said, this is where you need an adult to help you do this. So now I'm going to put that hot water, I'm going to add the hot water to the dry ingredients that we just added, the flour, the oil, the alum, all of those things together. And then I'll show you what it looks like. So there's my bowl with everything in it, and it is hot because you can see the steam coming off. So very carefully, I'm going to stir that and mix it all together. In fact, I'm going to flip this camera back around so that I don't have to hold my phone while I'm doing it. I can be hands-free there. I can hold the bowl and stir at the same time. And this is something you might want some help with. You certainly wouldn't want to spill that. You don't ever want to work with hot liquids, hot boiling water by yourself, because you want to be safe. You don't want to get burned. So we're going to mix this all together. You can see it in there. It looks like dough. If you've ever made cookies or bread or anything like that with your mom or dad or your grandma done any cooking in the kitchen, you might know what dough looks like. So you're just going to mix all that together, mix all those ingredients till everything gets mixed together, and it's cooling off a little bit. So it's going to be, you're going to be able to at this point, you're going to be able to maybe work with it with your hands. It says, when cool, mix with your hands. Okay, so as this cools down, you can mix it with your hands. I'm still using the spoon. I just want to be safe. I certainly wouldn't want any of you to get burned. So again, just make sure that you have someone with you to help you to do this activity. We want it to be fun and not anything where anybody would get hurt. All right, so I pretty much have that mixed together. Then it says, I'm gonna mix it together with my hands a little bit just to get all that flour mixed in. It is a little warm, so be careful if you're mixing it together by hand. Once you have it all kind of mixed together in a dough, I'm going to add some food coloring. And again, if you have food coloring, you can use that. It also said on a different recipe that you could use Kool-Aid, 2 packages of colored Kool-Aid. That might add some coloring to it if you don't have food coloring. This one just comes from a pack of food coloring that you might use to dye eggs or make frosting for cookies or anything like that. It's just that regular kind of food coloring. And you can add as many drops. I'm just going to add a few drops in there. This is going to turn my dough green because, like I said, one of my friends, his favorite color was green. I probably put way too much in there. Also, if you have some gloves, you might want to use some gloves to mix this up with because it will dye your hands. So I don't see any kitchen gloves under my sink. Usually I have some kitchen gloves, but I don't see any. So I'm going to use my hands, and just know that it will dye your hands the color. So you'll have to take a bath and wash that off later if you don't use gloves. And try not to get it on your clothes when you're working with food coloring or any kind of dye, because it'll get on your clothes too, and we don't want to ruin those. So I'm going to mix that green food coloring in. You can see my dough starting to turn colors, and this will make a fun Play-Doh. This Play-Doh can last if you put it in the refrigerator in a Ziploc bag or an airtight container, and it'll last for quite a while in your refrigerator. So now we have a homemade Play-Doh. I'm just going to keep working it together until all that food coloring gets mixed in green. And you can add as much or as little as you want to your Play-Doh. Hand sanitizer might be a good thing if you get any of that dye on your hands. I might try that with some hand sanitizer, see if I can't take that food coloring off my hands when I'm finished. And there I have my homemade Play-Doh. I'm going to keep working it together a little bit more just to get all that green through there, but you can see that I have my Play-Doh. This will last for, I think, even up to 2 weeks. If you keep it in the refrigerator in an airtight container, it won't dry out. And what I really like about homemade Play-Doh versus the Play-Doh that you buy at the store, this is a lot softer to work with, and it's not crumbly like I think the Play-Doh that you buy in the store is kind of crumbly. So anyway, there's my Play-Doh, and I'm gonna get a plastic bag. So I just have a plastic Ziploc bag that I can keep this in. And now I can make all kinds of things. And the reason, since we read that zoo book, what I thought would be fun is you could roll it and make all different kinds of shapes. Like if I wanted to make this into an elephant, I could make a head and the body, and I could make a long trunk for my elephant, eyes, legs. You can experiment making different animal shapes with your Play-Doh. Do whatever you want to make. Again, I wouldn't eat this Play-Doh because of that alum in there. I don't think it'll hurt you, but it certainly wouldn't taste very good. So anyway, you can make animal shapes. You can make whatever you want with your Play-Doh. So that's a great indoor activity. Since we can't go out and do a lot, you can bring the zoo home with you. Make your own zoo animals with your Play-Doh, and that'll last up to 2 weeks in the refrigerator in your plastic Ziploc bag. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day. I hope you're doing really well, and I'll see you next time.